All right, mute it, please. Mute it, mute it, mute it. We're going to go over this real quick, and then we're going to get started on today's lesson on net worth. So first of all, I told you in the warm-up, I gave you the little hint. What type of angles are these two? What type of angles is this pair of angles?
Vertical.
Say it again. They're vertical angles. So what do we know about vertical angles? Thank you. They're opposite and congruent. So if they're congruent, what does that word congruent mean? What does the word congruent mean? Raise your hand. Oh, that's like a 6th, 5th grade term right there. What does it mean? Congruent does not mean opposite. So when we say opposite and congruent, those are two separate things. Huh? Congruent does not mean next to, not quite. Thank you. Why do I have conversations going on over there? Say it again. That means that they are the same. Or you can think of equal. So if these are the same, we're going to set up an equation to solve, to find what x is. All right. So somebody, how am I going to write this equation? Somebody help me out. How am I going to write this equation? Over here?
4x plus 10 equals 120.
4x plus 10 equals 120. Here's a great thing. If you're ever watching this video and you participate, hey, you can say, hey, mom and dad, that was me that just gave Mr. Arnsworth the answer, right? And then I can also say, your kid's not participating in class. They never answer when we do the videos, right? Anyway, what's our first step in solving this equation? We're going to go the opposite order of PEMDAS. So what are we getting rid of first? We're going to get rid of the plus 10 by subtracting it from both sides of the equation. So plus 10 and minus 10, they cancel each other out or become 0. 120 minus 10 is? 110. So we ended up with 4x equals 110. I'll solve that over here. 4x equals 110. Now, how do we get the x by itself? What's the last thing that we're going to do here? Divide. By what? By 4. We're going to divide both sides of the equation by 4 so that it's balanced. X is equal to 27.5. Now, let's recap. These two angles, this pair of angles are called vertical angles, meaning they're opposite from each other and congruent. Since they are congruent, stop talking, please. We could write an equation and set them equal to each other so that we can solve to find x. We wrote an equation equal to 120. A big mistake that students made is that you set it equal to 180 because you got in triangle mode from the last couple days. And most of you remembered that the sum of all angles in a triangle is 180. And so you put 180. That's the big mistake that students are making today. Now, if we knew that they're congruent, we know that they equal each other. And so that's why we wrote the equation there. We solved the equation. I'm not going to go over that. Now, today we're going to be working on calculating net worth. Who can tell me what net worth means? Net worth. All right. How much something's worth? Now, net worth relates to people. Who can tell me what we mean by net worth? All right, so he just said how much money people have or are worth. A lot of times you'll hear when we refer to celebrities is, this person's net worth is, and then it gives you an idea of how rich somebody is. But we're going to be a little bit more specific, and we're going to talk exactly about what net worth means. What does it mean? You had it? It's okay. Somebody else? So, give me a celebrity that you're interested in finding the net worth for. And we're going to research what it is.
Give it up.
All right, so I heard Adele. Adele's net worth. Let's see. You should still be on the video. Nowhere else. Adele's net worth. So Adele's net worth is 185 million. Now, her net worth, we said, is 185 million. Now, when we talk about net worth, this means total assets minus total liabilities. What is an asset? Somebody give me an example of what an asset is. Take a chance, make a mistake, who cares, right? What's an asset? You hear it sometimes, they'll say, oh yeah, this person is an asset to the team. What do we mean by asset as it relates to money?
Important.
What?
Important.
Something that's important?
Hard worker?
Well, yeah, that would mean that the person might be a hard worker. If we're thinking about the amount of money you have.
Like the key, or like kind of like key, or.
All right, an asset is something that increases your value. And it could be something that you own. So one of the main assets that we like to think about are houses. If you own your house, that is an asset. It's something that increases your value, right? Something else that could be an asset is owning land. If you own a piece of land, that's an asset. It increases your value. If you own your vehicle, meaning you're no longer paying for it, it's paid off and it's yours, then your car, we would consider that an asset as well. If you were a business, and let's say you owned some sort of equipment, let's say you had a t-shirt making business, and you own the equipment that made the t-shirts, then that t-shirt equipment would be considered an asset. Now liabilities. What's a liability? It's the opposite of an asset. So somebody give me an example. I gave you some examples of assets. If a liability is the opposite of that, who can tell me what a liability might be? Something you're responsible for. I like that. So when we think about money and things that we're responsible for, think about your parents and things that they have to pay. What do you think a liability might be? The bills. So having to pay utilities like electricity, light, gas, those would be liabilities. What else could be a liability?
Oh, well, you have to pay it like, can you like when you go to the store?
So maybe like food expense. Food expense could be a liability. What else do we think is a liability? Think about things that you have to pay for that you're responsible for. Gas, right? A really big liability for a lot of your parents, I'm sure. Me and Miss Garrison have to pay them. Student loans. If you take a loan to buy a car, that's a liability. If you take a loan to buy your house, a mortgage, that's a liability. So when we talk about Adele's net worth being 185 million, this means you should be on mute. I shouldn't hear myself, guys. Follow instructions, please. So when we talk about Adele's net worth being assets minus liabilities, this means all the houses, boats, property. This could be jewelry, stocks, right? And then we're going to subtract all her liabilities, all her bills, all her loans, if she's paying any interest, right? Taxes. When we take all the good things, the assets, and all the bad things, the liabilities, and we find the difference between those give us our net worth. Now today you guys are going to be calculating net worth. We're going to be going through stations. I want you to start out. Did everybody get that paper? Did everybody get the liabilities paper? The net worth? All right. I want you to write down your objective. Our objective for today, and you'll see it here on the board, is today we will calculate net worth. Right at the top of the page. At the top of the page. Today we will calculate net worth. Write it down. Today we will calculate net worth. I'll go over the first example with you, and then we're going to get started. The top, you're going to write, today we will calculate net worth. Today we will calculate net worth.
Everyone is taking notes, guys. If you're on your laptop, you shouldn't be.
All right, so the first problem on your paper, and you guys can go ahead and shut your laptops like Ms. Garrison was saying because you have the paper in front of you. The first problem says Leroy's net worth is $9,456. His assets are shown below. What is the total value of Leroy's liabilities? So, write this somewhere if you don't have it already. Net worth equals assets minus liabilities. So here they gave us, it says his net worth. We're going to underline that because it's important. 9,456. And then it says his assets are shown below. And it wants to know what's the total value of Leroy's liabilities. So I'm going to circle the question. We always underline the important information and circle the question that they're asking you. Now, before we can figure out what his liabilities are, what do we need to figure out in this problem? They gave us something, but they didn't do the work for us. What are we going to have to figure out first? We're going to have to find out what the total assets are. So add that up on your paper. If you're following along, you should know. You're going to add up all the assets, all of Leroy's assets. Why? We just talked about this yesterday. Why is it that every day something's wrong? All right. Raise your hand if you got 15,640. If you're somewhere in that ballpark, 15,640. All right, nice. So we're not going to go over that. That's like elementary school addition right there. I hope you got it. If not, you just need to take your time a little bit more. Now that we know his total assets and we know what his net worth is, how could we figure out how much his liabilities are? Ah, awesome. So what she said was, we're going to subtract the assets. Oh, how can we subtract the assets from the liabilities if we don't have the liabilities yet? Ah, she said we're going to subtract it from the net worth. So what we're essentially going to do here is, we know these are his assets right here. We just figured that out. Those are his assets, total assets. We know his net worth. And we're going to find the difference between the two of those, and it's going to tell us how much his liabilities are. So find the difference between his assets and his liabilities. I'm sorry, and his net worth. Once you figure that out, you will figure out his net worth. We're finding the difference. I'm sorry, you'll find his liabilities. We're finding the difference between his net worth and the difference between his total assets, and that's going to give us his total liabilities. Now, if you're curious, after you do the math and you want to know whether you got it right or not, you're going to take the number that you get, the difference that you just found, and you're going to add it to the assets. Or, I'm sorry, you're going to subtract assets minus liabilities, and then that should get you 9,456.